Hi guys, today I'm going to count down my top 20 albums of the 1970s. So Straight Life by Freddie Hubbard on CTI. CTI Records in its very early days. A lot of jazz musicians were hopping over to this label. Creed Taylor produced a lot of this stuff. Players on this: George Benson, Ron Carter, Jack DeJohnette, Herbie Hancock, Joe Henderson, and Richard Landrum. I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. Number 19 is Spirit, and it's the 12 Dreams of Dr. Sargonicus. So consistent, every single track. You know, Nature's Way, Animal Zoo, Mr. Skin. It's absolutely brilliant. It is a great psychedelic rock record. Number 18, XTC Drums and Wires. Like leagues above what was going on in post-punk and new wave. This album is fantastic. It's got some great songs on it. Helicopter's great. Number 17 is Machine Gun Etiquette by The Damned. The first album is amazing, but when you get to Machine Gun Etiquette, this is a band that is firing on all cylinders, absolutely brilliant. And if you like your punk rock with some satire, it is a great band for that. Number 16, I got Sly and the Family Stone. There's a riot going on. Fantastic album. Stand is considered probably the best one, and then this one is the other one that's spoken about quite a lot. This is one that has Family Fair on it. It's absolutely brilliant. Number 15 is Bobby Hutcherson with Harold Land, San Francisco. Now this album is super interesting because Bobby Hutcherson being a vibes player, vibraphone players don't necessarily get a lot of attention music-wise. They're often found to be musicians that complement another host of players in a jazz ensemble. But this is a great album, and there is one particular track called Procession, which I think is just amazing. It's so good. Number 14, Joni Mitchell, The Hissing of Summer Lawns. When we start to get into 74, 75, Joni Mitchell starts experimenting with jazz. Her guitar tunings start to get even weirder, and she starts to bring in jazz players, and this is quite an interesting period of her career. And The Hissing of Summer Lawns really melds her pop songwriting craft with jazz instrumentation in a way that just is really satisfying. People don't talk about this enough, but I think it's quite a good album. Number 13, we have Gene Clark's No Other. His penchant for melody, but then also being really obtuse at the same time, is seen on this. It's such a great album in that it mixes, I guess, sort of the country sound that was from sort of the Byrds and Flying Burrito Brothers, and then it mixes that with psychedelia in a very interesting way, because there are strings in there as well. It's very good. Number 12, Plastic Ono Band. Now, John Lennon was fresh out of the Beatles. He did the sound collage albums with Yoko. People didn't know what the hell was going on because they didn't know sort of what was happening, really. They put them out. In terms of conventional songs, this was the first set of songs that he put out. So there were songs like the opening track, Mother, God, I Found Out, and then one of his most iconic tracks, Working Class Hero. This is a must for any Lennon fan. It's just a great album. Number 11 is Maggot Brain by Funkadelic. It doesn't get any better than the guitars on Maggot Brain. Just absolutely unbelievable. Great funk album. It's right up there with the all-time best. You must check it out. Anything from that era, which was George Clinton's entourage of musicians, which was the Funkadelic and Parliament bands, which are two separate bands. Anything from that period of time is absolutely brilliant and should be looked at. Anything in that 70s era is fantastic. So we're in the top 10. So now we have number 10, and I own a few of these, so I'm going to bring them out. Number 10 is Colne Concert by Keith Jarrett. Okay, Keith Jarrett was a prodigal talent when he grew up, and he's an absolutely fascinating pianist and musician. Signed to ECM in the 70s. He came to do this date, which is on the 24th, 1975. And he rocks up and he has a subpar piano waiting for him to play. And somehow he makes lemons out of lemonade and does this really interesting improvisational set. When I say that this is monumental, people do talk about the Sun Bears concerts and a few other ones, but this is definitely the one. This is the one that put him on the map, and this has been quite influential in my guitar playing. I know that it's not piano, but just the way that he goes about improvisation and live performance is just absolutely brilliant. Number 9 is Suicide, self-titled. So we got Martin Rev and Alan Vega slumming it for, a good while in New York. They're in the New York art scene, and they have a confrontational brand of what only can be described as proto-punk from hell. And it wasn't until 1977 that their first release actually dropped. And upon that release, it was smack bang in the middle of the punk revolution. And so a lot of people point to this album as such an influential marker in history, and I think anybody can pick up this album and start listening to it, and from the opening beats that are happening on Ghost Rider, just absolutely know that they've just been thrown into the depths of hell. It's absolutely unbelievably scary, and if you're a person who gravitates towards stuff like that, this would definitely be up your alley, because it's an absolute masterpiece. Number 8, this is Led Zeppelin 4, and Led Zeppelin 4 happens to be probably the most consistent rock album ever, from track to track. Okay, so we've got Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Battle of Evermore, Stairway to Heaven. That's side 1. Okay, flip it over. Misty Mountain Hop, underrated. 4 Sticks, underrated. Going to California, probably fairly rated. When the levee breaks, absolutely epic. Sandy Denny is on here. Where do they record this? In LA, Sunset Sound. There's the famous Hermit there. It is one of the most consistent, whether you like Stairway to Heaven or not, right, it happens to be one of the most consistent albums front to back that you'll ever hear. I mean, there's no filler on it. Absolutely no filler on it. Number 7, and I'm going to say this wrong, so correct me in the comments. Targo Margo by Can. Now, Can were very influential in punk and post-punk, and in the late 60s, early 70s, they had a bunch of releases that were in krautrock canon. This is their second album, and we have Damo Suzuki in the band now. The band has finally really incorporated all of the things that they liked, and they have made a pretty cohesive style of music now. It's absolutely brilliant. There are some drum beats on here that have been sampled time and time again. Its influence is so vast that there's people that are nowhere near their genre pointing to that as huge inspiration. Hypnotic music that is like very good with grooves. Number 6 is Raw Power by the Stooges, or Iggy and the Stooges as it was marketed as at the time. So this would be their last studio album, and this basically is burning. This is like your speakers, is something wrong with them if you put this on. You would think that when it puts it on. The whole mix, although there's 2 mixes, but the mix that was originally released, everything is up in the red. There's so much distortion in the mix, but it makes it part of the whole piece. Like it's just, that's the charm of this. You know, you've got Search and Destroy, Gimme Danger, Penetration, Death Trip, I Need Somebody. It's, again, with Led Zeppelin 4, probably one of the most consistent albums track to track. It's unbelievable that this stuff was coming out when it did. I think it was 1973, so we're about 3 or 4 years away from the punk really starting, and you can point to this album and many others as the sort of the touchstones for that, the catalyst for that happening. I'm going to go for the first Noi album. The first Noi album holds a special place for me because I heard about this band when they did their EMI reissues in the early 2000s. I knew nothing about krautrock. I knew about Kraftwerk. That was probably about the extent of my knowledge of krautrock. But when these reissues came out, I got the CD reissues, which I think was 2002, 2003, thereabouts. And I heard, I think Richard Kingsmill were doing a segment on krautrock on Triple J, and he put on Harlow Garlow, which is the opening track to this album. And just the metallic groove that just went through this track, it was absolutely brilliant. These synths going in and out. To say this is monumental would be an absolute understatement. It's just 2 guys, you know, it's Klaus Dinger and Michael Rother, and what they're doing here is just shook my foundations. It's just the sign on the back, but this is right up there. This is one of the true classics of the 70s. Number 4 is Get Up With It, Miles Davis. By the time we get to 1974, we're only probably a year away from Miles's hiatus from music, and so there was a big build up to this sort of happening. He did 2 shows in Japan, which were captured on the Aghata and Pangaea releases, that were his last releases before he kind of went away for 5 or 6 years. But Get Up With It is a great distillation of all the things that he was sort of doing throughout the fusion period. And, you know, there's organs and stuff like that. There's lots of different things that's been sprinkled throughout on this album. It's a double album. It's pretty long, but it's absolutely brilliant. It's probably one of his best. I would consider it to be number 4. Number 3, I never really get Record Store Day stuff. I'm not a huge fan of the quality of Record Store Day pressings. I'll only ever really go for a release when there's something really interesting about it. I'm not going to get like some, you know, like dictaphone recorded live concert that's, you know, sounds like absolute rubbish being pressed and them just saying, oh, this is exclusive. It doesn't make it special, but there's something really interesting about the first Public Image album that I have here, which is that this is an unreleased US mix of the album, and it was intended to be put out in September, October 79. But it never ended up seeing the light of day. And the interesting thing about this is that there's some tracks that aren't on here. You know, we haven't got the photo stomp at the end, which was on the original release, which is sort of like a little tongue-in-cheek sort of disco track that they did just to pad out the runtime of the album. But, you know, you've got Theme, Annalisa, Public Image, Low Life, Attack, Swan Lake. You know, it's The only thing I would say is that they should have included Religion 1 and 2, which are great tracks. But the fact that they've got Swan Lake in there is because Swan Lake's a great track. And obviously the Public Image, the lead single of that. This is a really special album. And the fact that I've got this, its intended mix is really good. It is better than the original mix as well, even though it's omitting the Religions Part 1 and 2. So number two is In a Mounting Flame by Mahavishnu Orchestra. Now, this is one of the best lineups in jazz fusion ever. So you've got John McLaughlin, guitar, Jerry Goodman on violin. Some would argue that Jean-Luc Ponty after him was better, but I actually think that Jerry Goodman is absolutely brilliant. You got Jan Hammer on piano, Rick Laird on bass, very underrated Rick Laird, and then Billy Cobham on drums. This absolutely cooks. This is one of the best albums. If you're a person who likes the playing of instruments, and you're interested in that, and you haven't heard any jazz fusion, but you like sort of guitars and stuff like that, and just heavy solos, you should listen to this. Like Meeting of the Spirits is brilliant. Awakening, Vital Transformation. Yeah, there's nothing better than this. This is absolutely brilliant. Number one.
I am just another brick in the wall, or maybe I'm the hammer swinging high.
The 1970s list of best albums cannot omit an album like Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Whatever ranking it could be put in by the person who's ranking it, it's obviously subjective to anyone, but I think its significance transcends time, culture, the modern sensibilities. We're in the postmodernists now. Like, we're thinking about life after death. We're thinking about our own financial situations. We're thinking about why we can't talk to the opposite sex. These are all everyday problems. They transcend race, they transcend time. The human condition as depicted on Dark Side of the Moon, there will never be anything that reaches that, I don't think, from a musical perspective, being able to capture that. Everything has to come together, almost as if it's serendipitous, that everything happened all at the same time to get to this point for Pink Floyd to make this. Pink Floyd would never have been able to make A Dark Side of the Moon in 1968, 1969. It makes total sense that they, I don't want to say scrounging, I'll say that scrounging around for sort of 5 or 6 years, trying to realise what Pink Floyd are actually about. The early Syd Barrett years, 67 and then some of 68. He was the leader of the band. He was really influential to the other members of the group. However, his own mental instability meant that he just couldn't be in that band. Like, it was just never going to happen. So that was the catalyst for them transitioning from Syd Barrett to a post-Syd Barrett Pink Floyd, which would start to morph into a completely different sound by the time they get to Dark Side of the Moon. They did film scores, and they did, like avant-garde stuff on Ummagumma. And then, they get to metal, and they're starting to see the start of what would be the classic Pink Floyd sound. And they get there with Dark Side of the Moon, and it becomes a blockbuster album. It breaks records in chart rankings. It breaks record in copies sold. It breaks records critically with people absolutely universally praising it, and rightly so, because the way that this was put together, it's like there's nothing out of place on this. This is a note perfect album. There's nothing that you could take out, and there's nothing that you could add to it, really. Using different sounds and, diegetic sounds, I guess, non-musical sounds, incorporating them into this album. The cash register on money, the heartbeats. It loops back at the end with the heartbeat at this, making it feel like a very circular, embryonic thing in itself. It's a suite of songs at the end of the day, right? But it's more of an experience, a singular experience to put on. It's kind of like, I have it on CD, and I'll usually listen to the CD of it rather than the record and just flipping over, just because I want a uninterrupted listen to it. It's absolutely brilliant. There's Us and Them, Money, Time, which I think has probably the definitive Dave Gilmour guitar solo. Time's probably the best track on the album. And then you've got The Great Gig in the Sky, which doesn't... Words can't describe The Great Gig in the Sky. Anybody who's listened to it, it makes them feel something in their bones that they don't even know what it is. It's unequivocal. You just cannot explain what that track does to people. You got Eclipse, Any Colour You Like. It's absolutely phenomenal. I don't think that you can put a list together without this. This is by far the best album of the 70s. So what do you think? What do you think about this? Comment below. I hope you have a good day, and I hope there's some in here that you haven't heard that you might want to check out, and hit a like on that one if you like. But until next time, I'll see you on the next one.